Hi, I want to take this opportunity to once again welcome you to Business Writing English 330. And today's demonstration is going to show you how to layer objects like pictures and text boxes in Word so you can make your letterhead look more professional. One thing I don't want you doing for the letterhead project is simply taking one graphic from the web, putting it next to your name, and saying that that's good enough. The best letterheads that I've had in class have been those that use multiple graphics very well, and so that's one of the things that I want to show you how to do. So I'm going to take the graphics that I've already downloaded. I just looked on Google for ones that were appropriate, and then I also went ahead and I put their web addresses at the bottom because you are also going to be required to cite the graphics that you use, but only in this first assignment. I'm going to assume that that's good for the rest of them. And we're going to look at how to layer them, how to do some fancy rotating work, and so on with these. Now, in class each term, I usually ask my students for a topic so that they know I haven't planned all of this ahead of time. But because I have to have everything done for the online class before class starts, and because I don't think you want to wait for me to make a sample, I asked one of my on-ground classes this fall what they would like to see me do for my online class. And the company that they described to me was actually a video game training company. So the company that we're going to be developing a logo for is a company where you would come in and somebody would actually teach you how to play video games so you could beat your friends. I thought that was kind of cute. So that's why I have grabbed a picture of a Pac-Man machine, a Murloc, and a teacher, which seemed appropriate. And I have also grabbed images that are fairly large because I want them to be clear no matter how big I blow them up in later projects. I'm going to start with my arcade machine here. To format this picture, all I'm going to do is click on the picture itself and then format picture. And what this does is it brings up options to actually edit this image. And you can also bring up some of these options by right-clicking on the image itself as well and going to Format. And the most important one that we're going to change in nearly all text boxes and nearly all pictures this term is the Wrap Text option, which always looks like a dog. And if I click on that, you're going to see some things like square tight, behind text, and in front of text. And that all makes pretty good sense. Like you want text below it, next to it, in front of it, or behind it. But what doesn't always make sense to people is that this box also allows you to completely control where on the page the image goes. So if I choose tight, now I can put this image anywhere on the screen, which wasn't the case before. I had to stay within the margins and I had to go where text could go. And now I can put this image anywhere I want. So I'm going to make it smaller using the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to move it up to the top, which wouldn't have worked before. And I do make it fairly small because you don't want your letterhead to take up much more than about that amount of the page. Older letterheads sometimes did, but we don't want to do that with this one. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other two pictures. I'm going to change the wrapping to tight and make them smaller. And if you see messy things happen on the screen like this, that's fine because we're going to come back and fix it later anyway. Now Mr. Murloc would probably be fairly small, so we're going to make him pretty small. And we're going to make our teacher probably about the right size to fit in with the arcade machine. Alright. Now, if I put him next to the machine, one of the things that you've probably run into before is that, well, one, he's not facing the right direction. And the second thing is he's not see-through. And so we can't see the arcade machine through him. The way you fix this is through the recolor box. So I'm going to click on recolor. And the latest versions of Word actually have a remove background option, but it's actually really hard to use. And if this next trick works, you don't want to go there. Under recolor, I'm going to choose set transparent color. I'm going to click on the white, and he becomes see-through. So now we can actually see the machine behind him. Because he has some white on him, he is possibly going to be see-through in some other places too, and I'll show you how to fix that at the end. Now, there are some options within my picture styles and corrections to actually mirror him, but there's an easier way. If I take any edge of a graphic and I put it all the way down to super skinny, and then over on the other side, eventually he will reverse and become mirrored. So that's what I'm going to do to mirror him. And then I'm going to put him down so that he's pointing at our arcade machine as if he was teaching somebody about it. Another thing that I want to pay attention to with him is that he has this information in the bottom, and it's copyright, but now it's backwards. So if you want to remove something like that because you're actually citing the image down here, you can use the crop tool, and that will allow you to cut the edges off an image. And there's other good reasons for wanting to do this, obviously, other than hiding some text at the bottom, but now it's gone. And the last thing we have to do is reverse our Murloc, make him smaller, because they're not very big, although they're incredibly annoying. And I'm also going to recolor him so that I can also put him in front of the arcade machine without him being obviously not part of the same image. And there's other things we could do to make these look better. You could add some color corrections so that they all have the same exact color scheme. But honestly, for this class, I'm usually not worried about doing that. Now our next step is to add some text next to this image so that it turns it into a letterhead rather than just a logo. And as you see here, I've typed in some text. It says Video Game Trainer, which is the name of the company, and that is as high as that text will go without changing my margins, and I'm not really interested in changing them. If I wrote a 2-page letter on this, for example, I wouldn't particularly want to do that. So I'm going to delete that text off. Okay. And I'm going to put a text box here instead. And a text box will hold text, and it has all the same properties as an image. So I can put it anywhere on the page, I can put it in front of and behind things, and so on. And to find your text box on the Mac, it's under Insert over here, and on the PC it's going to be in your Insert tab on your home ribbon. So I'm going to insert a text box. And there are some pre-drawn ones that you can choose from, but in all cases they're kind of ugly and overused. So I'm just going to put in a text box on my own. And don't worry if some of the elements on your page then jump around. That's perfectly normal. One of the things I like to say is that Word is just a little bit stupid. We can always put things back afterwards. So I'm going to pick a font that is video game-ish for the name of our company. Video Game Trainer. I believe I have the Nameco font saved in here. A quick note about this though, if you are going to be using a font that you think is probably not going to be on my system and is not one of the normal ones, you should send me that font along with your assignment. And in order to do that, you'll probably have to email me the font and turn in the assignment via the assignments tab, and that's fine. So I'm going to type in Video Game Trainer. Which is kind of nice. I inserted this line here as I told you about during the memo assignment. I pressed underscore 3 times and then it popped up. And for your actual address, even if you do use a fancy font for that part, you're going to want to choose a normal font. And there's all sorts of good reasons for that, but the primary one is that you want your audience to be able to read it well. And you want people who are sending you stuff to be able to read it, obviously. If you were using this on a letter with an envelope that matched, then you'd also want to make sure that the mail could actually read it. So it's important to do that. So we're going to give it a fake address, and I always use ones on campus for this, but you don't have to. You can make up whatever address you want, but the address does have to be well formatted, and it does have to be correct. So if you put in a state and a city, I'm going to ask you for a zip code. If you've made up that state and city, you're going to have to make up a zip code too. Frostburg State University, 101 Braddock Road. Now, the other things you need to include in here are going to be a phone number, and it has to be a proper phone number. So if you decide your 1-800 number would have words instead of numbers, that's fine, but you have to make sure it has the right number of them. So your average phone number is going to have 7 digits. So we have video game trainer, so we might say good game. You are also going to need to have a fake URL. And I'm going to extend my text box a little bit so this all fits. And I'm going to want to have an email address. And your email address needs to be at the same address that your URL is. I also ask that you remove the hyperlink, because hyperlinks really do need to be removed for this kind of thing. You wouldn't have that underline there for your actual letterhead. And now I can move this box wherever I want, within reason, other than Relax giving me problems. And that works. And then I don't want that box to have a line around it. Depending on how you drew your box, it's going to have a black line and a white background, or no line and no background. I want to show you how to remove that anyway. The simplest way that always works is to right click on it and format the shape or format the text box, depending on what version of Word you have. That will open up a box that allows us to make sure that we have no fill and no line around it. And that's okay. So my box is invisible. Now, if you are doing this letter assignment, you're going to want to move down this stuff, because what actually has to go on your letterhead under here is your mission statement and your company description. Remember, the mission statement, there's a lot of examples on missionstatements.com, and for your company description, you really just need to tell me what your company does, who they are actually selling things to, and any other pertinent information that will help me understand your project. And then the last thing you do is go down here and put these